Conservative commentator Ann Coulter has come under fire this week for comments she made about the son of vice presidential candidate Tim Walz. Walz's 17-year-old son, Gus, grew emotional on Wednesday evening as his father delivered his speech accepting the vice presidential nomination at the Democratic National Convention. Gus wept with pride and emotion for his dad, saying, "That's my dad." While many expressed an outpouring of support for Gus, some were swift to verbally attack the teenager online. Conservative media pundit Ann Coulter posted a tweet on X that she has since deleted, which responded to an article with a photo of Gus in tears. She wrote, "Talk about weird, ... Since then, social media has been a place of outpouring support for Tim Walz's son, who has a nonverbal learning disorder, ADHD, and anxiety. Former First Lady Michelle Obama swooped in, writing in a post on Instagram, "I was touched to see Gus Walz's joy when his dad Tim took the stage. Thankful for you showing us all what real love looks like, Gus." Former Obama staffer Tommy Vitor wrote on X, "I can see why a child loving their parents would feel foreign to you."
Republican Congressman Mark Molinaro of New York wrote, "Look, I may not agree with Tim Walz's prescription for America's challenges, but I've always believed in shielding our children from attack. His son Gus, our kids, neurodivergent and of all abilities, ought to be celebrated and supported."
Last night, Coulter attempted to walk back her comments. She wrote, "I took it down as soon as someone told me he's autistic," misspelling the word autistic. She continued to quote, "But it's Democrats who go around calling everyone weird, thinking it's hilariously funny." So I will say, very different to call a grown man like J.D. Vance weird for his policy choices and then call someone's 17-year-old son weird who has a nonverbal learning disorder.
Yeah, it was inappropriate and cruel comment, and she shouldn't have done it. Ann Coulter is a very provocative commentator. She's said a lot of not good things over the years. This is one of them. She shouldn't have said it. She apologized. I think politicians, kids should basically be, underage kids, not Hunter Biden, but not the Kushners, but underage kids should be outside the realm of
Actual kids as in children,
yes,
not offspring.
not just the people they've given birth to at some point in their long careers, should be off limits. And, most people on both sides seem to agree with that, although they occasionally violate it, as it was violated here. It's cool that he was inspired by his dad, and it wasn't anything inappropriate about the emotional reaction. It would have been appropriate. I don't know specifically what his neurodivergency alleged status is, but it's fine to be excited for your family member. There was no reason for a inappropriate or a condemning reaction from anyone.
Yeah, he has a nonverbal learning disorder, ADHD, and anxiety. I think that seeing people so quick to attack him was really telling.
Well, I don't know, people. We're talking about a person here.
No, there were a lot of posts on Twitter attacking from various conservative commentators and using the attack line weird, which I think is because they are triggered, maybe, because they've been called weird. And again, so different to say, calling women who don't have children yet cat ladies because they've chosen a career over starting a family and focusing on them when there are tons of men without wives or children and they have a pet dog. No one talks about the weird dog men of Silicon Valley, but we should. No, we shouldn't.
I don't have a dog.
I think, attacking people for their personal preferences is something that's weird. It's okay to be like, stop being weird. Weird becomes a bad and maybe not so good thing to say when you're talking about someone who's vulnerable. And the difference is punching up versus punching down.
Ugh, I don't like that distinction, but go ahead and explain
it. Of course you don't, Robbie. But someone like J.D. Vance, who's in a position of a lot of power, talking about stripping people of their civil liberties, is someone, it's okay to say, hey, this guy's weird. Someone who is proud of their dad and who is 17 years old and has a learning disability doesn't need to be insulted for who he is as a person. It was a beautiful moment.
I've already said I agree with that, so yes, I
know,
I
I'm
agree.
not arguing with you.
But the punching up, punching down thing, I think, is often used. Not in this case. It's just you don't have to criticize a teenager. Like, leave the teenagers alone. I mean, I will say there's a lot of people in liberal circles who spend way too, in liberal journalists, spend way too much time trying to cancel teenagers for controversial things they said on social media or when they were teenagers, which I am totally against. I hate how cancel culture has been weaponized against young people who are not perfect at all times. But the punching up, punching down thing is, often when somebody says that, brings that up, like, oh, you can make fun of this person but not this person because this person's powerful. Well, they're usually saying that often from a position of power themselves. Like, who has power in the relative situation is often not being well flushed out by the person is assuming that I have the right to insult someone, but I cannot be insulted because I have no power and you're more powerful. Journalists in particular like to say this, even though they have plenty of power to ruin people's lives by digging up controversial things they used to say. So it's not my favorite dichotomy. I would just say politicians themselves are, of course, within the limits. They're not off limits. You can make fun of people as people make fun of Trump, and Trump makes fun of people, and it's all fine. And you know, we don't need to. We can fret the decline of civil discourse, but it's just not coming back. It's okay to make fun of
people with disabilities.
No, politicians. Of course, it's not fun to. Make fun of people with disabilities.
Yeah, well, I think that's the difference there then, is like journalists, even if they're liberal journalists, libs of TikTok is not a liberal place. They make fun of teachers and people who have never consented to being in the public space for doing things let me finish speaking, Robby, for doing things that are not favorable to their political ideology. And then you have other journalists, maybe they're liberal, criticizing influencers for using the N-word and things like that in a private setting. That's very different from criticizing someone for simply having a disability.
Yeah, I don't think anyone should be criticized or made fun of for having a disability, period, full stop. I mean, what libs of...
But that's what punching up versus punching down is. That's what I'm saying.
Well, then what... Okay, if that's what it is, then I don't have a problem with it.
Oh.
But I don't think that's how it's used all the time. If punching up, punching down is just don't make fun of someone with a disability, we don't need another term for it. We can just say don't make fun of someone with a disability, right?
Or like... I think it applies to, yes, people with a disability, but a lot of people who are not doing so well in society. Like, doing a stand-up set on people who are transgender, who are being attacked in the media constantly, just isn't funny, because those are people who are, you know, under fire in our society, who are struggling in our society, who are not treated as accepted in society. So making fun of them, it's one, not funny, not good comedy, and two, it's not good comedy because it is punching down.
Yeah, I'm not going to join you there. I don't want to start telling comedians what is and is not funny. It's just like, literally, if it's funny or not. You know, Dave Chappelle has told jokes about people with lacking privilege that I sometimes think are funny and sometimes are not. I think there's a sort of paternalism by saying, to take the position that there's a group you cannot make fun of at all in any circumstance, which isn't quite, like, I'm not even sure people who identify that way would like to, you know, be considered so fragile that you can't insult them. Do you know what I mean?
I think there's a line to be towed, and if you're being mean, it's usually not funny. And I think that's why comedians are mad. They're like, I'm being canceled. It's like, no, dude, no one wants to watch your set. It's your job to make stuff that many people find funny.
I mean, the line
you can't
between...
bully your audience into liking your comedy.
Well, sure. The line between whether it's mean and whether it's funny is I mean, it's subjective, but if it's good comedy, I think it's fine. And if it's not, it's mean. Like, it depends on the individual joke or how you do it. Like,
yeah.
You know, Louis C.K., who got canceled viciously for some of his personal behavior that was not good, but I still happen to think he was like, I don't even really like stand-up very much. I'm not a big fan of, I don't watch tons of comedy. I thought Louis C.K. was hilarious, and he made fun of all sorts of groups of people, and it was genuinely funny when he did it. And it didn't, it's whether it seems like it's coming from a place of actual malice or whether it's just a joke. And again, that's the performance, that's the setup. So there are cases where I think it's fine, and cases where I'm like, that's over the line because that's not funny, and that does seem mean-spirited. And cases where it's fine because
but that's what punching
you
down
believe the person is not actually evincing malice; they're just telling a joke.
Yeah, it's not that you can never talk about transgender people or people with disabilities. Shane Gillis has good bits on his
that's another good
with
one.
Down syndrome. Yeah, it's not that you can't talk about it. It's that being mean about it, and so punching down is what's not funny.
Or like, what about
and
South Park or Family Guy?
Yeah, that's the point. Not punching down. You can talk about it, but without being mean. And that seems to be what's exposed right now with the Gus Walz thing, is that so many conservatives don't understand the difference because so many of these people live chronically online lives disconnected from the general public, and then they say things that no one would ever say in a social setting because at the end of the day, these people are just so out of touch.
But punching up, punching down, I have to push back. I don't think it's about not just being mean. What it literally is about is if you occupy a place of relative hierarchy and power as part of your gender or racial group or wealth status or whatever, you should not criticize or make fun of or mock someone lower on a lower hierarchy than you. And my criticism of that is that power relationships are subjective sometimes and situational sometimes. For instance, you could be, the most powerful whatever CEO or political or celebrity figure doesn't end up actually having that much power versus even a 22-year-old journalist when they find their tweet from when they were a teenager where they said something they shouldn't have had. It's relative to the situation. So that's why I don't like the terminology. But I, of course, agree with you that mean-spiritedness for the sake of mean-spiritedness is bad, and there are cases where the power separation. I wouldn't use power as the framing. I'd say it's just not nice to belittle a teenager, really for any reason. Just like leave kids out of things. And so I absolutely agree that this was not a good thing to do, and the criticism directed at Ann was justified, and so on.
Yeah.
Okay, more Rising right after this.